everyone, this is Grandmaster Damian Lemos here for iChess.net, and welcome to that continuation of this King's Indian Attack series we are doing. The idea is to analyze a couple of games and to get a better idea of how to play this powerful system for white. And I say powerful because we can play it no matter what black plays, and if we know the ideas, then we'll probably get a good position. We don't have to memorize much. What we have to do is understand what we are doing. So, you probably saw the first video already. In that video I was talking about the amount of setups black has to play against the king's Indian attack. Usually we start with e4. If he plays a Sicilian, we already get a king's Indian attack by playing like this. The same goes if he plays the French. For instance, we can play d3 and knight d2. If he plays the Caro-Kann, we can also play a king's Indian attack. So today we'll see another game which also started as a Sicilian, as a Polsen Sicilian. We saw this in the first video as well. White plays d3. And instead of knight c6 and this, which is what we already saw, we'll see what happens if black plays with a pawn on d5, which is by far the most popular move, or the most popular setup against the king's Indian attack. Knight bd2, we have to play this move. We don't want to trade queens off. This would be a mistake already. I mean, we are not losing, but we lost the initiative. We lost the power of this position. So we play knight bd2 first, knight c6. Okay, this knight f6. Usually black, he doesn't play a move like d4. I mean, he can, but he's giving us more squares. On the queen side, we can play a4 first, stopping b5. And most important, once the center is closed, it's like we have a green light to attack on the king side. It is much better for black to keep his pawn on d5. That means he can take on e4 anytime. So he plays knight f6, bishop there. Black, when he plays this variation, he usually plays bishop e7. Bishop d6, I know this move is possible, but black is exposed to a fourchette with e5, so bishop e7 looks more accurate. White castles, black castles as well, and here white plays e5. As we said in the first video, this move is important because we win space, and the main purpose of this move is to remove this defender from the king side. We know knight f6, knight f3, they are the best defenders of the king. Knight d7, rook e1, we have to support the e5 pawn, queen c7, we have to play queen e2. And then our goal is to attack on the king side. And we can do this because of our e5 pawn. So queen e2. Black, on the other hand, is trying to do the same on the queen side because he has the advantage there. And we'll continue with our plan. Our plan is knight f1. Our bishop goes to f4. We'll see the bishop on f4 is a powerful piece. And in order to increase our kingside space, we can play a move like h4 and try bringing our pieces this way. I love this maneuver, knight h2 and knight g4. Maybe we can try a move like knight g5. The thing is, I'm sorry about that chess-based sound, it happens from time to time. What I was saying is, we both have ideas. We are attacking on the king side, and he's doing the same on the queen side. If we are both successful, then black, he's probably winning material, maybe he's grabbing our rook on a1. On the other hand, if we are successful, we are going to mate him because we have a better target, which is his king. So that's why I like this line for white. Black played a5 in this game. I know he can try playing something like b4, maybe a5 can be considered as a waste of tempi. I mean, he can try playing bishop a6 immediately without playing a5. The thing is, he wants to open the queen side no matter what, so advancing his pawns is probably a good idea. Bishop f4. This move, we have to play it because first we overprotect the e5 pawn, and second, we are looking at his queen. That means Black won't be able to play a move like f6, which works as a freeing move in this position. Of course, now we take and we just win. I also have to say that even if he has the chance of playing f6, this is a positional risk for Black because the e6 pawn becomes weak. I see stuff like bishop h3 for instance, and we know the e6 pawn is backwards. So bishop f4, Black played bishop a6, h4. All the moves we played so far, we can do it on autopilot. They are standard moves. We don't have to think much. Before, as we can see, he's already reaching our queen side. So we better act fast. And without thinking much, I would play this. As I said before, we have a lot of ideas. Bring in our knights. Even I'll just play some nonsense for Black because I want to show an idea. I can try playing something like this. This is well-known stuff. And after h6, I can try this move. It looks like I'm just sacrificing as white, but I have an idea. I can try playing this and I'll mate him on the h-file. If he plays a move like this, he'll probably lose because he's defenseless against moves like knight f6, and even if he stays with the pawn here, I can consider playing knight f6 check, and I open his king side. Despite being up 2 pieces, Black is not able to defend this. This is a well-known plan. Also, knight here is an idea. So, this is definitely possible. I believe Black has to react as soon as possible playing something like c4, opening lines on the queen side, because on the king side he's simply dead. He has to open that position on the queen side quickly. So, knight 1, h2, I would consider it. What white played in this game, I also like it, because knight e3 is more direct. We still have this idea. We'll see what happens if he takes on e5. But basically when we play knight e3, we have another idea, which, maybe Black doesn't see this. Knight takes e5 is usually an option, because when he takes d5, we have e6, and suddenly all of his pieces are hanging. So this is a nice resource. Let's take a look what happens if he takes. We can take, knight takes. I see knight takes d5 already. We have a lot of ways of getting our pawn back, but I also see this. And after queen takes e5, knight takes d5, and here he's in huge trouble. Queen takes e2, knight takes e7 check. Extra piece for us. And, well, maybe queen d6, but okay, takes. Bishop takes. We are up this change. I know this diagonal looks weak, but we can play a move like f3, and our material should decide the outcome of this game. So, as you can see, taking the e5 pawn is too risky. We have more than one variation to get the advantage, so black plays knight b6. As we were saying, this knight takes d5 is a threat. I mean, if he plays a move like a4, I can already consider stuff like this, followed by e6. And of course, I can also try doing what I was trying to do before, bringing my pieces to the king side. I can try stuff like knight f6 check now. So he plays knight b6, overprotecting this pawn, h5, c4. This is a race between white's attack and black's attack. Knight here. And it's tough because if I were black, I know I can't advance my pawns. This looks extremely risky because of these weaknesses. And if I play h6, I mean, this pawn is begging to be taken. I mean, I can just take this way, or even with my bishop. I know he's defenseless. I don't even have to take on h6. I feel a move like queen e3 is devastating. As you can see, black is lacking defenders. So it's tough to play this as black because he cannot advance his pawns, and our pieces, especially our minor pieces, are pretty close to his king. So in this game he played knight d7. This move is the sign that black made a mistake. I mean, if he has to go back to d7, something went wrong. If I were black, I would consider a move like queen d8 maybe. Because when I play this, I stop those knight f6 possibilities I was saying before. I mean, if this move he can consider, and after this, bishop d6, I guess, I can take, queen takes, and then a simple move like queen e3, attacking the knight and also having these ideas is simply winning for white. So yeah, knight d7 wasn't accurate, maybe queen d8, still a tough position for black, but he's in the game. Knight d7 is weak, and white plays queen d2. Maybe we can continue bringing our pieces to the king side, but I like this move because when we have the queen on d2, our chances of entering his position are higher. As you'll see, black tries opening the queen side, but we simply take. We play queen c1. Now the queen side is kind of closed, and we can still try bringing our queen to the king side, maybe by sacrificing stuff like this, or bishop h6, or maybe by means of knight f6 check. It is nice to point out that when we have the queen on e2, it is tough to bring our queen to the king side because of our knights. So I like how white played in this game. Black played rook a b8. Again, I feel he has to move that queen somewhere else. The queen on c7 is at risk. He played rook a b8, and white simply plays knight f6 check. Black cannot take. I mean, if he does, we take. Bishop d6 is the only move. We take, and then, since we have the queen here, we have mate in 2. Now we start to understand white's idea. So knight f6, well, if he cannot take with the pawn, it's unlikely he can take with a piece. I mean, this is even worse. Bishop d6, I can take, and then queen here. There's no way to stop the mate. This and this. So the last option would be bishop takes. I take. Well, this is a disaster. After e5, I can even take the pawn on e5. I mean, no matter what I play, I have the bishop pair already. Not to mention I can destroy his king side, but I feel this is stronger. Knight takes. bishop takes, knight takes, queen here. I'll get my piece back, I mate in him. Yeah, this is a winning attack. So after knight f6 check, he played king h8. Okay, it looks like everything is well protected for black, but okay, we still have some tactics going on. What I recommend here is to pause the video and try finding the best continuation for white. Pretend this is a real game, and of course try finding the best move. Also feel free to write down the variations you see, because this is a good exercise, good way of training tactics. Remember that we can get all the advantages, but at some point we have to convert them. So what I'll do now is I'll do my 5-10 seconds pause, and then I'll continue talking. Okay, so let's continue our analysis. As usual, I was doing a little pause in case you wanted to pause the video in order to analyze. Here as white, we don't have real targets yet. I mean, maybe we can sacrifice. This is not a good idea yet, because if we play this check, he'll just take. And if we play h6, he can close the king side by playing this. So we cannot take on h7. Maybe knight takes e7 is a move to consider, but we have to be careful because he can still close the king side, and he's pretty close to entering our queen side. Rook b2 is there, he can double up on the b file, and unless we mate him, we are in trouble, because on the queen side, it is fair to say we are dead. I mean, we have no play there. So knight takes e7 is not a good idea. When you're attacking, you don't want to trade pieces off. So the move is knight takes d5. We saw this trick already. We know this tactic is this tactic has to be considered. And after pawn takes, which is the only move by the way, we have e6. It looks like we are trading pieces off, because bishop d6, in fact we are just trading, but his king side is lonely, no pieces there, and we'll exploit this. Bishop takes, queen takes, we take the knight, we need our material back, queen takes, and then h6. We played now before he plays h6 himself. And what I like about this move is that the natural reaction would be this, but then we can appreciate how weak his dark squares are. I mean, I can just play a move like queen a3, trying to take. We are also mating him in some variations, even queen f4 is worth considering. I mean, it is visible that we have a clear advantage here as white. Even this h6 pawn happens to be a big advantage. Imagine we play a rook endgame, this king on h8 is kind of trapped. So this is a mistake because we play queen a3 and maybe d4, but then we play queen c5. Believe it or not, there's no way for black to stop material losses. He cannot play rook b5 because of queen takes f8, and if he plays something else, my idea is to play knight e5. He has to take, and then, okay, let's try to put this in practice. Rook here, knight e5. It is much better to show the variation, that gives you a better understanding. Now he has to play f6, and worst scenario I can grab this pawn. And I have the feeling these two guys are falling sooner or later. So that's winning for white. So black, instead of playing that g6, plays this move. which looks like a better try, because if we take, he takes with the queen. I have to say his king side doesn't look good, but okay, black is still in the game. So after this move, white plays knight e5, which looks much better because he has to take, and once we take, we bring our rook to the attack. This is awesome. We are also attacking the d5 pawn, and as we were saying, this c3 pawn is also a weakness. Here he plays rook fe8. Maybe this, but okay. This gives us another reason to play queen takes h6. We attack the bishop. We have this idea as well. So he plays rook fe8, trying to trade some pieces off, which is usually a good idea when you're defending. But queen e1, I love this move. I mean, if he goes somewhere with the rook, then he's wasting a tempi. If he takes, we have queen takes, and suddenly everything is hanging. As you can see, black is lost, and queen d7 is the only move for black. Rook takes, queen takes, or even rook takes e8, and queen takes c3. Here black resigns. The thing is, there's no defense. We have this mating threat. We are also attacking on a5. d5 is hanging, so I believe f6 is the only move. We can take, king takes. Yeah, I can play this in-between move first, and then I grab the a5 pawn. I mean, maybe he can continue fighting, but in the short run, he should be losing. So black decided to resign here after queen takes c3. This game was Stripunsky against Goregliad. You can find it on a database. And yeah, I think this game shows how powerful the King's Indian attack is. And I wanted to analyze this game because what we saw here is one of the main lines of the King's Indian attack. As I said in the first video, we have a lot of lines and setups to study, but this is the one we have to analyze first, because if you don't like this one, you probably won't like the others. And the other reason to study this first is because you're likely to face this setup if you play the King's Indian attack as white. So that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you get a better understanding of the King's Indian attack. And I would also like to see you guys in my next series. Thank you.